Good morning, everybody. My name is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast. And man, I saw everybody bobbing their head, getting ready for the show. So it's always awesome to start my day with this Master Motivation show. And I am so excited to have three amazing guests today who are going to introduce themselves in just a second. And we've got a lot to talk about today, a lot to catch up on. So a couple housekeeping items. Number one, if you can see that big blinding white light on my head, I didn't anticipate the sun being right in this window here today. So I've just got a little light on me today. And also, I just want to let everybody know that every meeting I take notes. So if I happen to be looking down, it's not that I'm looking at my phone or I'm not listening or distracted. I'm actually taking notes because I'm learning today. Just like I hope everybody else will. So listen, if you're watching live, please engage in this conversation. Let's have some fun with this. Let's get fired up. It's a great Friday. Let me start first by letting everybody introduce themselves. And I'm going to start at the top on my screen with Tony, the Godfather.
Thank you, everyone. Hi, I'm Antonio Fournier. The nickname, of course, is the Godfather, just because I think I've been around for a very, very long time and helped give a little inspiration to the early guys coming in. So they always kind of looked up to me, and I said, "Oh, everybody needs an Uncle Tony, the Godfather, to help you around on things." So that's kind of how it was. It was actually really just a fun thing because everybody wanted to be the father of everything. I just said, I want to be the Godfather of everything. So, everybody was the father of this and the father of that. So I just want to be the Godfather. So that's kind of how the name stuck. I've been doing martial arts since 1972. I don't stop. And I'm probably like everybody here, always searching for more motivation to stay inspired throughout my life. And I know the gentleman that I'm with today are great representatives of that. So I'm blessed to be with all three of us, or all of us together. So thank you. God bless you guys. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for being on the show. Super excited to have you here. And, I love the nickname. I love the Godfather. Number one, having a little Italian background, I'm the good half, right? My wife is 100%, but the good half Italian, right? So Godfather being one of my favorite movies of all time. So anyway, great to have you here. Let's move on down the line to Mr. Pat.
Hi there, everybody. Yes, once again, great company here. Thank you, Jason, for this. I'm the president of a group called Not One More. We're a nonprofit. We talk about drugs. I try to bring youth up. As time went on, I transitioned into this area. I used to be a coach, and then I moved into going into school, speaking to kids and motivating them to do better. As somebody said earlier, going to the next level. So,
love it. Love it. Thanks for being on, Pat. Pat, I met Pat through my Rotary Club. So we had a morning Rotary Club meeting, and we bring in a guest to speak to us. And I was so impressed, and I learned so much from listening to Pat about his program. And I just thought that his message was amazing to share. And of course, everybody here on the screen today has been on the Master Motivation Show. So please go back and check out their entire edition of their own Master Motivation to learn a little bit more, some of the things that we might miss today. But let's move on to the next one. We got Master Rick Rando down in the corner.
How you doing, guys? Rick Rando here. I think this is my third time on Master Motivation. Second time, fifth, I don't know, somewhere in there. Jason calls. Whenever he calls, I answer his phone, and I answer my phone and say, yep, just tell me what time I'm supposed to be there and where the camera's pointed. And we hope to inspire, make you think, and, just challenge your process here today. So thank you so much for having me back. As a full-blood Italian, I want to say it is an honor. It's an honor to be in the presence of the Godfather. So thank you. And Pat, you actually look like one of my family members. I'm not going to say which one because he's
I hope it's the good side.
He's extremely handsome, sir. So
there you go.
I feel like I'm right at home here. This is going to be a fun session.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Guys. Rick Rando is an amazing speaker, also a Tong Soo Do practitioner, as I am, right? That's your background.
Taekwondo, yeah.
Taekwondo. I'm
cousins,
sorry.
Though. It's
cousins, right?
We're
in the Korean systems, but one of the things that I love, I listen to his Rando Speaks podcasts and speaking engagements, and just a great message talking about faith and discipline and confidence, and, you know, all these life skills and all these things that we teach in martial arts, but help us in other areas of our life. And truly honored to have all three of you guys here on the show. So I'm going to start with a couple questions, and then at some point here, we'll get a chance for everybody to ask their own question. And we got a bunch of people starting to jump on. So if you're watching this live, please join in the conversation. You can ask us questions, and we would love to answer those questions and hear from you and know who's watching us today. So let's talk about how you got into motivational speaking. What was like maybe the first time that you started speaking? What encouraged you to be a speaker? And what do you love to speak most about? Let's start with Pat.
I like, growing up coaching kids and youth football and whatnot. And, you know, my dad was always somebody that we were always involved with group organizations. Once I got out of the coaching part, I started noticing things going on around there, more of what we're seeing in our communities. And I like to motivate kids into, like we talked about earlier, taking that next level, taking that next step. I always use the analogy. I go, we're always on stepping stones. You can either make them smaller or you can make them bigger as you go through life. And we want them to understand that they make their own choices. My main thing that I talk about is of course, drug awareness, but also other things like mental health and whatnot. And so I encourage kids to open up, talk about it, talk to their peers, talk to anybody that'll be available for that. And that's kind of what I do in a nutshell. It's just, plus I help people. I spent $30,000 this year putting people into recovery programs. What I see is out there, somebody just took a wrong turn somewhere, and we just try to motivate them back into their lives, you know, and tell them they don't have to stay there. They can move on forward and make a better part of their lives go into a different level. And they do. A lot of people do. You know, I do speak to families as well. And it's unfortunate that we have to have a group like this speaking about drugs and to the level that I'm at, because I do speak on, you know, the loss of life too. So, yep.
Well, good morning to my wife. She's watching, and she said, I love what you do, Pat. Our kids need
Thank
more
you.
of this. So, hey, she was in that meeting when you spoke with us. So, you know, you talked a little bit about mental health, right? And that's definitely a hot topic, and something that I think we need to be talking more about with everything that's going on in the world. You know, our mental health has got to be, in my opinion, it's got to be at the lowest, you know, in times. Right. And some of you being a little bit more mature than I, and been on this earth a little bit longer. You know, we're just seeing this as just such a challenge. And then, of course, when you put drugs into the mix, that just exacerbates, you know, mental health issues and problems. Pat, for you, what was the starting point of speaking about mental health and drug use or abuse?
Well, we just hit our 11-year anniversary. So we've been doing this for 11 years. And what we were seeing was some of the kids I coached up, they were starting to get into, you know, the drugs and hardcore drugs, not just marijuana and, you know, alcohol and whatnot, you know, as you usually think it would be, but the hardcore drugs. And we just came as a group of parents. We came together. We just said, we got to do something. We don't know what to do, but we've got to do something. Yeah. So we know that we have a problem in our communities, and now we know national wise, we have a big problem across this country and across this world. But one of my main things was putting these kids on the right track. With all that the kids have to face with is way more than I ever had to face as far as social media. You know, the mental health part comes a lot from, you know, that area, the social media, the bullying, cyber stalking. You know, I've had an FBI agent come with us, and all she did was completely do cyber bullying with us and talk about cyber stalkers and whatnot, and try to get these kids to, you know, they don't have to live on this computer or on their phones.
Right.
They need to get out and do other things. So
what I love that you said was that you had to do something. You felt compelled to get involved and to do something, because, you know, it's hard. You know, where do I start? What do I do? But right. You took that step and you went out there and did it. And so, you know, good for you for stepping up as a coach and as a parent. to be in your community and help support them. Let me move on and ask that same question to Mr. Rando. Talk about how you started speaking, what inspired you to speak, and what you speak about most often.
So my first speaking engagement, I was 14, and I was the keynote speaker at the Flag Day ceremony on July 4th in our town, and I spoke about Betsy Ross, and she's putting together the flag and what it means and that kind of thing. And when I was done, I was extremely nervous, like anybody else when you speak in front of a group. But I was done. I just had an overwhelming number of people come up to me and say, "Wow, that was amazing! Like, how did you do that?" And I never really thought of it like that. And of course, my mom helped me write the speech. So I got to give some of the credit to her. But I thought, wow, man, what kind of difference can you make in someone's life with your words? That's powerful. I mean, you can hold the door for someone, and you can go out of your way to buy a meal for somebody. You can give somebody a ride. All of these physical actions are amazingly impactful. But when we're talking about mental health, your words matter. And if you can make somebody think, you can challenge their entire process of how they make decisions and really influence or change the trajectory of their life in a single moment, in an instant. Something that you says connects. I mean, I don't know where we are in our faith, but for me, the second that I said, "All right, God, come in," it was a life-changing moment. Right then, that decision changed me forever. And it's amazing how somebody's words, somebody's coaching, somebody's seed they planted in me can bloom, and it can bloom and change literally my great grandkids' lives. Mm-hmm. Because the legacy that you leave is not one that you really need to be here for to see. You might not see the fruits of your labor while you're on this planet, but your great grandkids, or maybe your great grandkids' best friend is quoting you for something that you said to your kids that said to their kids. So it's an amazing opportunity and platform. Social media is great because you can get out these messages. It's also the most vile thing that I think human mankind has ever created. Like Pat said, you have extreme bullying, people not being able to know who they are, questioning everything that they learn or grew up seeing, from the bullying to the stalking to the, pornography. I mean, it's just crazy, the access that kids have at their fingertips. Yet the information that we have is so overwhelming that a lot of times never need to call electrician. All that information is right there. You Google, boom, your light switch doesn't work. I can figure out how to turn it back on. I mean, it's amazing opportunity with information, but also misguided can really get us. So I've been speaking ever since. I do it every day on the mat, at least 6 days a week here at the studio. I love speaking corporately, but for me, similar to probably all the other speakers, I love what I call those light bulb moments. Those moments where you're speaking to a group or an individual and you see them, boom, you're like, they have this moment of clarity based on what you said. And they're nodding their head and they're, wow, I'm so introspective right now. I never understood it could look or sound like this. And for me, I think that's the reason why I speak and just try to make people think. That's all. Just make people think and smile every once in a while.
Well, you brought up a lot of things, which I absolutely love, is that realizing that words matter and that you are making a difference, not just now to this people that you are speaking with or speaking to, but could have an impact, many generations down the line. And, when it comes to teaching martial arts, right? It's funny. I'm listening to you talking. I'm like, I never imagined thinking that teaching martial arts, I was actually a speaker. I was just a teacher. I was an instructor. I'm leading the martial arts class, but I didn't put those two together until literally just right now that I am speaking 6 or 7 days a week, right? 6 or 7 days a week. And these 3-year-olds that are learning about, discipline or focus or whatever. And man, sometimes my kids do this too. All of a sudden, my son just started teaching martial arts at our school, and I hear him say things that I've said a million times. And I'm like, what'd you just say? And he would repeat it. And I'm like, so you were listening. You were paying attention. And he just now passed that on to somebody else. And I had one of the biggest compliments yesterday. I had a parent come to me and said, you know, I really love having Mason teach class. Mason's my son. I really love having Mason teach class because he explains things in such a way that my son gets it. And I was like, whoa, that's big, right? Because that was from me to my son, and now my son to the next level. Just amazing. But, you know, I want to talk about, you know, the nerves and speaking and being nervous. I'll bring that up in just a second, but I want to move on and let the Godfather talk about first time speaking. What got you into speaking? You know, who encouraged you? Why were you up there?
Well, for me, again, just like what Master Rick was just talking about, the same type of idea. You know, you just figured out that you're speaking every time you come into that classroom. So for me, it wasn't just the, you know, mat chats. I always try to put together some sort of sensei sermon. And then other people started listening to me. I used to have, I would see clergy sit back in my classrooms and actually start taking notes on the things I'm saying. And I would go up to them and I say, well, what are you doing up there? And he goes, well, this is going to be my sermon for next Sunday. So I said, okay, excellent. But my first one was actually day one. I started doing some motivational work for them, basically borrowing a lot because Jim Rohn was my, you know, first hero back in those days. That was one of the things I would start bringing up, is the different things I had listened from Jim Rohn and bring in. And I still use a lot of things from Jim Rohn in my own classrooms today. You know, whether it be the 100 times theory or whether it be the tree theory, how tall will the tree grow? Of course, as tall as it can. How far will it, you know, spread its branches as far as it can? How many leaves, and so on. So, you know, we bring in a lot of the things that Jim Rohn had to do. And that's what got me first going on doing all the motivational speaking. And like a lot of us, when we see those light bulb moments pop on in that kid's mind, it's fantastic. And I'm just thinking about the paradigm shift of what Mason went through just a few weeks ago. Was like, you know, when do we start saying things like our parents said? Well, okay, it's really kind of cool that he's actually had to go through that. I sound more like my father every day, but he's doing it in a cool way. But for me, it's fantastic to hear that, you know, when they start to do that. My daughter Maria is on the floor with me all the time as well, and listening to her bring those messages across and sounding more and more like their parents every day. You know, I don't want to get to the progressive commercial where you're less and less like your parents. But it kind of seems that way. So it's a great paradigm shift. And following up on the words, you know, one of the things I teach the kids: words produce your thoughts, thoughts produce your actions, action produce your results. And if you don't like anything that you're getting for results, change the words you're using. Very simple.
Wow.
Not easy to do. Very simple.
That's a powerful one right there. So anybody watching, that, you know, change the words. Change the words. I like that. You know, I've had the privilege to listen to each of you speak, and you know, not only do I get inspired and motivated, but I'm being educated at the same time. And I think that's, you know, just such a unique skill, because anybody can, anybody can just talk and talk and talk and talk. But when you can do those three things, when you can inspire somebody to be better, when you can motivate them to take the next step, when you can educate them on how they can improve themselves. I think when you can accomplish all three of those things as a speaker, whether it's in the classroom, on the mat, or, you know, at a corporate or business meeting, you know, I think that is just an amazing trait and an amazing skill. So I commend all three of you on doing such an amazing job with all three of those things. And we're only a little ways into this today, and I've got goosebumps already, especially, you know, I've got my wife watching, which is amazing. We have Scott who is watching. Anybody else watching, please comment, let us know you're there. And again, any questions, anything that you want to know about, this show is for you. So please let us know. You know, I remember my first speaking. Well, if I'm using Mr. Rando's first speaking, it would be when I was probably 13, 14 years old, teaching karate class. But when I got on my first stage to speak, it was for the Martial Arts Industry Association. I was speaking at the Martial Arts Super Show, and I was scared to death. I was absolutely scared to death. I hated public speaking as a child. I would never do it in high school for the fear of judgment, right? It is what I have to say important enough? Is what I'm talking about going to help anybody? Does anybody care what I have to say? Is anybody going to listen? And, being one of the consultants for Maya, I think maybe I got a little bit of a rub there. And so the room was full. I don't think it was full because I was speaking. I think it was full because, it's my consultant guy's going to speak. Let's hear what he has to say. But at the end of that speaking, right, and I got through this, and I'm sweating, and I had my family was there, I had my instructors were in the room. Man, that was weird to have my instructors in the room listening to me speak. And afterwards, for them to come to me and say, "Wow, that was amazing. I took a lot of notes. I learned a lot of stuff." And that first speaking changed it, because it was like, I do have something to say. I do have something to share. And, I got the bug, and I spoke for many years as a consultant, and have gone on now, obviously, to do a podcast and out in the community. I love to get out and talk about the benefits of martial arts and the benefits of, community service and giving back. But everything that you guys have said has struck a chord with me, making a difference, words do matter, right? Sometimes it is more of a sermon than it is just another mat chat, right? So I never really thought that I would be in that position, that I would be up on stage or be on camera to speak to a group of people. But I do enjoy that aha moment. I enjoy that light bulb where someone kind of looks and it just changes. It just changes their life, and boom, they're off and running. So it's been amazing. It's been a really great run, and I'm enjoying it. So I look forward to continuing. So let's turn this over now, and let's let everybody ask their question so that we can move through those. And again, if we have any comments coming in, I'll put those up on the screen. So Mr. Rando, why don't you start with your question for the group?
So my question's pretty simple. I have you all are experts in finishing, and what I mean by that is that my neighbor, and I won't say where or when, that kind of thing, he's always start these projects, so he'd have this dumpster outside of his house, and he'd be bringing out wood and drywall and things like that. And I'd yell over, "Hey, how's it going? Like, what are you working on?" He's like, "I'm redoing my basement. Oh, it's going to be amazing. I mean, we're going to put up this, it's going to be a pool table. It's going to be like recessed light. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait to see it. Let me know." He goes, "I'll have you over when it's done. I'll have you over." A couple months later, dumpster's back out again. "Hey, how's it going? What are you working on now?" "Hey, I'm working on my bathroom." "Oh, it's going to be great. We're going to do heated floors. We're going to do these cabinets. And hey, how's your basement coming?" "Well, ran into a couple problems there. We got this, we got that. But the bathroom, the bathroom's going to be amazing. Oh, it's going to be amazing." "Okay, yeah, I want to come see it. Yeah, I'll have you over." You know where this is going, right? 3 months later, that dumpster's out again. And the bottom line is that most people do not know how to finish. So my question for the group is, how do we overcome that? And what advice do you have to maybe somebody out there that really struggles with their finish? So I just ran a marathon 3 weeks ago. Okay. And I can't tell you how many times that I saw people that didn't finish for whatever reason, whether it's lack of preparation, or was it with the heat, or your body's not cooperating, or an injury. So all of that is legit. But I also saw a lot of people that were not prepared, and I guess this is part of the answer. But my question is, how can we coach somebody who's trying to run a marathon, do a house renovation project, lose weight, write a book? How do we coach them in how to finish? That's my question.
Great question. Mr. Fournier, you want to start?
Sure. A lot of times too, I like to go into talking to clients about how much they sometimes overestimate how much talent they have, and they underestimate how much talent it's going to take to get something done. So I always try to figure out where are the talents at, and then try to say, okay, this is going to require a lot more talent than you might be thinking it does. But as far as trying to get them to finish the project, I think that's it. We've got to get to the point where we can get them to make sure that they're, I hear the dog too, so it's okay. hope it sounds like a big dog, which is great. I love big dogs. Okay. For me, it just, for them to finish it is be the first priority. You got to set that strong deadline for them. And almost to the point, if you're talking with a client, you got to make sure that they're, almost financially connected to that. So they have to have that project done, even mentally, just say, look, I got $1,000 I get if I finish the project, even though there might not be $1,000 there. Again, it's the reward type of idea, right? The reward has to be greater than the pain they're going to suffer to get there. Mm-hmm. So for me, I would try to look at, maybe they mentally put a picture of them putting $1,000 away. That's if they finish the project, and they get that $1,000 when the project is finished. And sometimes it's just simple as putting a doorknob on. And I can understand what sometimes it takes 6 months for us to get there. So,
right. Man, you start talking about, having that reward. All I can think in my head is I made a bet with my wife years ago. Never make a bet with your wife when it's over a purse. If it's over a purse, right? Because she whooped my ass on that challenge, right? So the reward was definitely greater than the pain. But when you're talking about overestimating and underestimating, I was just thinking about this the other day. A lot of people overestimate what they can do in the long run, but they underestimate what they can do in the short term.
So true.
And so I'm in a 10% weight loss challenge with my students right now. We have we just finished a Krav Maga test last Saturday. And, there were several people on the team that just felt like they probably would have done better if they shed a little weight. And I've noticed that, over the last however long it's taken to gain that weight, I gained a little bit of weight back. And I'm like, well, if these guys want to jump in and do this, I need to jump in and lead from the front as I try to do in everything that I do. I'm going to take on this challenge too. And so, again, it's, first of all, it's having a vision of, what is the challenge? What is the project? In this case, 10% weight loss. So for me, that was approximately 23 pounds, right? Is what my goal is. And I'm already down a little over 8 pounds in the first, 8 days or whatever. But we know in that first 8 days is when most of it goes. And I'm going to start hitting that plateau in the hard part. But what I do when I set a challenge like this is I need to look at what it looks like in the future, what it's going to feel like in the future, right? And how it's going to change my life, right? And so, I look at losing 23 pounds and I'm going to move better. I'm going to feel better. I'm going to be able to, have a little less stress on my back and my knees, right? So for me, it's looking at that vision and then plotting. I like to post every day, or at least be held accountable with, okay, here's what I weighed when I started. Here's what I weigh today. This is how much I've lost so much. This is how much I have to go. And I just keep breaking it down and keep hacking it down. When it comes to, my finances with the martial arts school, I used to do a presentation that I thought made it so easy to look at how to break down. If you've got a goal for your gross income in your martial arts school, right? How to break it down into the different revenue streams, and then breaking it down into different categories and laying it out for the month. Again, it goes back to planning accordingly and then tracking that progress along the way, because without tracking your progress along the way, I could start now and in 30 days, let me take a look at how I'm doing. Well, I haven't done anything yet, right? And I'm one of these guys on a weight loss challenge. I literally weigh every day, every morning, every night. Every morning, every night. I have to do it. I get obsessive when it comes to, challenging or finishing. Every time someone throws out a challenge like this, 10% weight loss, let's go run a Spartan. My wife, I hear her groaning every time someone throws out a challenge, because I'm like, oh shit, I got to go do it. Every time there's a challenge, I got to do it. And it's so rough. I had a friend who 100 burpees in 100 days, 100 burpees for 100 days, every day for 100. Oh my God. That was brutal. And I had to break it down. Like I had to do 10 burpees, every hour or so, just to because I didn't want to have to do them all at once, but I did it. I finished that 100. So at the end of the day, again, having a vision of what it looks like at the end, tracking your progress along the way, and making those adjustments is what helps me to finish in my goals and in my challenges. How about you, Pat?
I feel the same way. I like the part of compartmentalizing. I'm the last one to give advice on projects because I'm that guy, either that thinks about it, doesn't start it, or just doesn't complete it, But you know what? It's about what you feel your limits are. I tell a lot of people I work in a rehab. So I work with families in recovery. And what I tell them is we got to compartmentalize our lives in a way that we're not carrying all that weight on our shoulders. So it does drop us to our knees and we are given excuses not to do something, because I have all this stuff going on out here. And then all of a sudden it's just overburied. And then I just go sit down, just like, that's a hard thing for a lot of people because in today's world, like you said, we have the social media thing. We're doing challenges. We're doing all this stuff out there, and some people, yes, it's a great motivational thing. And when you're doing challenges and whatnot, I challenge people just to be better people than they were yesterday. That's all I make it simple, just be a better person than you were yesterday, move on forward, do what you can do without having to overbear yourself, and overwhelm yourself, because then all of a sudden we get stuck and then we find ourselves, like you said, that your neighbor, that goes out there. I got a new project every month. There's a new project going on, but I just don't start to tell you the truth.
Well, what I was thinking, you talk to people, hey, how's it going? How you doing? Oh, I'm busy. How you doing? I'm busy. I'm just so busy. Yeah. And I want to ask, well, what have you done? Right? You're busy, but what have you done? What have you accomplished? What have you achieved? What have you finished? But I will say, Pat, that I feel you on these, social media challenges. Like I said, my wife groans every time someone says a challenge. I'm like, I'll do it. Because I sometimes I'll run myself into the ground trying to keep up, trying to do everything at the same time. And sometimes that's a distraction, trying to do multiple projects, multiple challenges, multiple things all at one time. Sometimes when you're so spread thin, you don't have that focus on that one important area. So I think that's something that's worth mentioning as well.
Right. It's not just about the physical part. It's about the mental part, what it does to you. And mentally you just you start getting into that routine, start, stop, and it's just now that's what we try to teach people. We try to, when we go out and talk to the kids and whatnot like that, it's just like, okay, start a project, compartmentalize, write it down. I heard that too earlier, write down your projects, write down the things that you can do. Don't make yourself where you have to make these goals that are so out of reach that it's almost impossible to do. I do believe in challenging yourself and moving forward, like I said, the next level, but sometimes it gets overwhelming and people don't complete that, whether it's a home project or it's your mental health and like trying to achieve. A lot of kids right now, when I go to high schools and I speak in schools, the biggest problem the kids have, their biggest challenge is their homework to try to be a better student to get to college. So all that work, that's the number one thing that comes up. Because I listen to the kids. It isn't about talking to people. It's about listening as well. I put a meme up on my Facebook page about that. Know when to listen and know when to speak. And that's, a big thing out there. When I go there, I listen to the kids. They talk to me. Once you start the conversation, they feel that they're not a threat. They're not in threat by you. Then they start opening up and they start talking. Some of them get emotional, because you challenge them to bring those feelings up to the top. And some of it is good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff out there. Not everything is a negative out there, right? So
Yep. No, absolutely. I think that is important, is that we do take that time to listen a little bit more. So I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Tony, you're up for your question.
So my question kind of goes with what Pat was just talking about. You're reaching those kids who are in that demographic of 18 to 22 who seem to be a little bit more lost just because of how they've last couple of years with the COVID and stuff. How do we get back into making sure? And I think, Pat, you hit on it really well, is to meet them where they are, but it's getting harder and harder to figure out where they are, and then how to meet them. So my question to you is, what have you been using and I hate to use the word use, but what have you been doing, developing, that helps us get to that goal of trying to get the 17 to 22, 23s, not to one end of their life? Basically, what it's coming down to is that, what do we got to do? What's our wording? What's the messages that we got to put out? So I'll leave it right there with that. Listen.
Let me just jump in, because I think that at least 3 of us will agree, and Pat, I'm sure will as well, having any experience in martial arts, get your kid involved in martial arts, right?
I always say
get your kids involved in martial arts early and keep them consistent and train, So some of my most successful students in my school, I've been watching this over many years, is my 3 and 4-year-olds seem to last the longest overall. And so, when you get them into an activity and they stick with it, but I mean, what better activity to teach them focus, discipline, concentration, confidence, being able to express themselves. We got a lot of stuff going on, right? And especially as they get into those teen years, like we're saying, college is such a stressor now. And I've been asking people, in my podcast, did you feel like you had to go to college, or you felt like you wanted to go to college? And they're like, I felt like I had to go. And that's just kind of how a lot of people feel. So then you've got this stress of, well, man, if I'm not taking all AP classes and I don't have a 5.0, I mean, I can't even imagine that these kids have the pressure of, a 4.5 or a 4.6 isn't good enough to get them into the school they want to go to. Like, that's crazy. Just incredible pressure. But, again, going back to the martial arts, kids need structure. I think that one of the biggest challenges is that we have allowed kids to make their own decisions, right? I mean, I don't want to get too deep into a topic that I probably shouldn't discuss today, but like, kids cannot decide and choose everything. If you're allowing them to choose everything, I think that we're setting them up for success, setting them up for failure rather than success. So giving them a structure, giving them, let's talk about faith and core moral values, right? To make good decisions, to, as Pat said, be a better person than you were yesterday. Help other people become better people around you. So, with martial arts, these are built-in lessons that we teach each and every day. And then on top of, all the physical, benefits and the mental benefits, but how about, the leadership that we instill in martial artists to go out and to speak to other people, right? And talk about how their life has been changed by such a positive force. A lot of kids are dealing with parents that have to work so hard. I mean, listen, Pat and I live in California. It's a tough place to live. It's a tough place for a lot of people to afford to live, so the stress and pressure of having a dual income and parents not being there as much as maybe, I grew up, my mom was there. I had a stay-at-home mom. My mom was always there. And, a lot of discipline instilled, a lot of structure, and thank God for that. Thank God that I had that to keep me, with that positive outlet and that direction. I feel that, a lot of kids are lacking the direction, so again, for me, it goes back to the martial arts, giving them direction, parents helping them to learn how to make good decisions. I don't think that parents have to make every decision, but I think that we should teach our kids. I have a 21-year-old and an 18-year-old. So they're right in that group that you're talking about. They're right there in that group. And I'm grateful for a wife that, has helped bring up these kids in a very tough world, to be hardworking, to be caring, to be, contributing. like I said, my son just started teaching martial arts. I never pushed that. I never thought that was. Everybody asked me, "Hey, is your son going to take over the business?" I'm like, I don't know, but I'm going to give him all the tools that if that's what he wants to do, I'm going to help steer him that way. My daughter is going to school. She hated school. But you know what? Listen, go to school to give yourself every opportunity that you can, and then make the decision. And here she is. Go ahead, Pat.
But Jason, one of the biggest things that we see out there in regards to sports, and I was a coach, so I'm right along with you guys. It isn't just about the physical part, it's about the mental part. And a lot of parents live their dreams through their kids by playing 24/7 sports, and they never let their kids be a kid because they think their kid's going to be a pro athlete or whatever it may be, get to college on a athletic scholarship or whatever it is. But a lot of the burnout that I see with kids by the time they hit high school, not everyone, but by the time they hit high school, the parts that I got to deal with is burnout. They're burnout.
Yeah.
They're being hammered with school. They're being hammered with sports. They want to be the best. They're everything. Right. It's 24/7 now, 365 days a year that you play of one specific sport. And when I grew up and went to school, it was you went to different levels of sports, football, track, wrestling, and each one was designed to follow the next one.
I witnessed this.
Yeah.
I witnessed this. My son played baseball, he played football, he's been a wrestler, and I've watched, what's going on. I was in early years, I was guilty of this. Like I didn't think my son was going to get a scholarship, but it was like, you got to keep up. Again, it was this whole keeping up with everybody else is what we got caught in. And then at some point, it was just like, Dad, I just don't love it anymore. I'm like, well, let's find something that you do love, right? I mean, he played baseball for 10 years. Then he loved football. Then he loved wrestling.
Right.
He's always loved martial arts. Thank God. Please. So, hey, Mr. Rando, why don't you take this question, and Pat, why don't you restate it to make sure that I stayed on track and we get the right response?
No, that was perfect. That was perfect. I think that you said the challenges earlier were the kids being kids and families being there to back them up. It's not about how you push a kid. They'll listen to you. Just like you said, your son, when you thought they weren't listening, they do. But it's how you push that onto the kids. Yeah. And that's what I do. And so when, and I've heard this too, as well as you were talking about earlier, the burnout comes from, what they do afterwards. We know the why. Now the what is what they do, to challenge those, to get through those efforts. Sometimes they pick up and use drugs or something to go to sleep, to stay awake. I had a parent one time call me up and said his kid is in college and wants him to get on Adderall because the kid will make him be a better student. I go, you know what? That's like buying, a kid a $500 baseball bat and expecting that bat to be a better, make that kid a better batter when that kid can't swing at nothing. It's just like, it doesn't matter what you give them. It's inside. It comes from within inside.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Rick, I'm sorry. I skipped over you.
Sorry.
Let's let you answer. That was Tony's question, right? Let me let you answer that question.
I'll just be fast because I'll just be regurgitating everything that you all are saying. But I think structure is good. I think the disintegration of the family is really lending itself to all of these problems on a massive scale. I think lack of faith, lack of guidance. You don't have to necessarily do martial arts, but you do have to have some sort of moral compass, and that comes from your family, it comes from your faith, it comes from people pouring in. And the older you get, the less you have people pouring into you. I mean, think about that, right? We're in school and we have, a teacher every single year, multiple teachers, right? Then we go to high school and we have one for biology and one for history and one for math. And you got all these people pouring in, and you get a little bit older, you get to college. Now you have to choose to go and have people pour in if you decide to go to that 8 a.m. class. And then after college or in those years, you go to work and maybe you have a good boss, maybe you have a good culture at the place you work, but there are less and less people pouring into you as you get older. So you have to pour into you. You have to decide who you are. And the analogy that I give is when you're in high school and you go to lunch and it's the first day of school, you're in a new school, maybe you're in ninth grade and you have, lunch with everybody, and you have the tray in your hand or your bag lunch, and you're looking around for your people. And you're saying, okay, well, the athletes are sitting over here, and the people that do hacky sack, they're over here, and the mathletes are over here, and the cheerleaders are over here. Like, where are my people? And most kids at that moment, they'll just sit so they can't be seen, or they'll just sit at a table by default. No. What we coach our people on, whether you're 16 or whether you're 36 or whether you're 56, is know who you are and know which table is yours. And if you can't find the table, you sit at one by yourself and be very selective of who sits next to you. And if you can do that, if you know exactly who you are and you know what your purpose is, you have a moral compass, you have people that pouring into you. And if you don't have you have a single mom who's always working, and you don't have a coach that thinks of you, and you don't have a professor that pours in, you have to pour into you. And the problem is that these kids, through COVID or social media, they find, comfort in online stuff that's not necessarily the best moral compass or the best thing to pour into them. So I would just say you have to know who you are, and you have to solidify who you are. And if you can't find other people like you, you be unique, because that's how God made you anyway.
I love it. I love it. Great stuff. I was thinking as you're talking about, again, high school was hard for me. It was really hard. You would think that a kid that started martial arts at 10 years old and got my black belt at 17, I was lost. I didn't have, this major friend group. I didn't play, team sports. I wasn't really involved at that time. But what I did have is I had one teacher out of all my teachers, who happened to be my woodshop teacher, who took an interest in me. I could tell that he cared about me, and he was probably the first teacher that I ever that whenever I'm asked this question, I always remember this teacher as the one that believed in me, because if it wasn't for him, I may have never made it out of high school. Like, he was actually the reason I would show up to school, because it was my first class and I was excited to be there, because he would listen. He would listen, and then he would encourage in his own way. He had kind of a funny woodshop, way of kind of getting in our head a little bit. And he was kind of old school too. So he reminded me of my dad a little bit. And, but he would bring us out on jobs. And then, I remember telling him that I wanted to open a karate school. In high school, I would talk about opening it. He said, if that's what you want to do and that's what you love, that's what you need to go after. You need to find something you love and stick with it. And your passion will carry you a long way. And that stuck with me for so long. So, Tony, when you ask that question, what can we do for these, 17, 18 to 22-year-olds, is be that person and teach other people how to be those people. And we can just continue reaching out to more of those students. And I think that made probably the biggest difference in my life at that young age, was that teacher,
And you said, and Jason, you said that you have to be what you needed at that moment, be what that person needs at that moment. And Pat was saying it earlier, and it's right behind me. It's level up. That's the next level so now you know who you are. And the next level is now, how can you level someone else up to become who they were meant to be and designed to be?
Like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, this has been awesome. We're getting ready to wrap up here in a little bit, and we have a couple dozen people here watching, which is amazing. We've had a great audience today, but I haven't heard from all of our audience. I know that we had, obviously, my wife was on earlier. Scott was on. Dana Abbott is watching. So thank you, Dana. And Jeff from Facebook says, thank you to all of you for doing this today, and to Pat for always helping when I reach out for a friend that needs guidance for themselves or their kids. Amazing testimonial there. Thank you, Jeff. If you're watching still, this is your last chance to ask us any questions before we get ready to close out the show. And I'm going to ask my final question, or just let everybody kind of give their final thoughts, if you will. So, Mr. Rando, why don't you, as we close out the show, if you have any parting words, any final thoughts that you want to add to this topic of discussion today before we go?
Sure. 3 things. Anyone that's willing to go into a school and be vulnerable, as a lot of you guys do. And Pat, this sounds like it's your level of expertise. I go into schools a good bit, and those people should be commended, because you are literally seeking out time to go and inspire and motivate and really guide other humans, most of the time without compensation. So I just want to say that, Pat, you're an amazing human. And anytime that we can keep even just one person off of drugs, I think we win, because we've seen that a lot in our area, specifically here in Maryland. And that's a noble cause. So thank you, sir. And, Jason, for what you do and the content that you put out weekly, sometimes daily, because I know that you do you're involved with a lot of podcasts. Okay. And either it's Monday motivation, the master motivation, the Monday thought, the Thursday thought, definitely the content you put out is potentially life-changing. So I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be part of the conversation and maybe helping somebody to think. And then, obviously, I speak to the Godfather, because, this is the first time I got a chance to meet him. But, what I would just say about vision casting, and I think that you were saying that earlier, when it comes down to completing things, that is essential. You cannot get to the end without seeing the beginning first. And you have to see it. You have to believe that you can renovate, and then also have the tools and financial compensation, the money, or the know-how to be able to complete it. And most people fail from that because they can't see the end, right? For me, with the marathon, I think it's my 7th, either half or full. When I'm running, I'm not feeling the pain. I'm seeing the person put the medal around my neck, and I'm seeing that then when I can go ahead and then take it off and let my kids wear the medal. Like, to me, that's what pulled me through that, and the strength of Jesus, I would just tell you. But the last thing, and I'll just say, just something that I learned today, is that my wife, for 2 years, Jason, makes me else on the planet. So if I go and speak somewhere and my wife is there, other than my mom, those two are like, sort of there. It's like another level, because if I know my wife is in the crowd, she's not going to pull any punches when I say, hey, how do you think that went? She's going to tell me. And I think that's number one, invaluable. But number two, I'm always on my toes when my family members are there. So I get it. And with your wife chiming in, you better be on your toes. And hopefully she's wearing those nice shoes and the purse that she got from me the last
Always. Hey, Pat, your final thoughts today before we wrap up.
Well, I'm looking at my comments on my Facebook page from all these people, and one of them, a good friend of mine, Shannon, she wrote, Pat is responsible for getting me speaking, and I have not shut up since. You know what? The biggest thing is getting others, and knowing that we can't do it all, but getting others to go out there and spread that word out. And to me, that's the most profound, statement right there, is saying, and motivate others. It isn't about us trying to save the world. It's about us saving what's around us.
Love it. Thank you. Mr. Fournier.
This is going to be a shout out to you guys from Samara. So grateful to you, Pat. God bless you all for the panel today. Jiu-Jitsu has been an amazing tool. God is so important. So, that's for all of you. And, this is on my page here. So
that's awesome.
Pretty amazing what we're doing today here. We are motivating people. We're getting people to listen. And you know what? And it isn't all just about us. It's about it. This is a we thing. As we move out there, this is about we, So Jason, thank you for creating this platform to get it out there.
Definitely, Pat. And I apologize if I was talking over you. It kind of froze up for a second. So
yeah,
I apologize
sorry
for
about that.
Nope. Tony, you're up. Last final thoughts before we go.
Yeah, I want to again thank you, Jason, as well, and being with this great group as well. Thank you very much. It was nice to finally connect with Rick Rando and Pat Montoya as well. So, and thank you, and God bless your works from now on. For me, I'll just leave with the thought, as I've been trying to tell all the kids, listen, you're an endangered species. There's not another one of you on the face of this planet, right? And what we do with endangered species, we try to protect them. Right. We don't yell at them. We don't scream at them. We don't tell them they're fat, they're ugly, they're this, they're that. I said, we try to protect them. So just look to the kids to your right. They're also an endangered species. Look to the left. They're an endangered species, and you got to treat them accordingly. And that's it. And I try to big thing for me, teach the kids their worth. If they understand how much they're worth, they'll have great self-esteem. And God bless you guys for all always trying to help produce more worth in everybody that we're around.
Amazing. You know, whenever I listened to you speak, Tony, that was always the feeling that I got. It was always the last thing that you talked about was remembering how important each one of us is. And you would talk about that self-worth, and that we were, you know, we are the only one of us. And so the unique person that we are. It always stuck with me when you would speak of that. Even in a business seminar, you would be talking about that. And I think that is a very important reminder for everybody. So listen, guys, thank you all three of you. Thank you for what you do in your communities. Thank you for supporting me and for being on the show and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. It's just great to have friends like you that, you know, we are out there making a difference. And, you know, one student at a time, one black belt at a time, however you look at it, we're making a difference in our community. And when we change our communities, we can change the world, right? And so really it's one community at a time that we're making a difference. So guys, great job. Amazing job. Thank you so much. God bless all of you. Continue doing the great work. And thank you to everybody that's watching and continues to watch the Master Motivation podcast. Please go and subscribe to the channel. Share the videos, especially this one. Share this one. This is a great Friday video for everybody to take into the weekend. I am looking forward to seeing you guys on another show in the future. But again, take care, and all my best to all of you and your family.
Thank you, guys.
Nice to meet you
guys.
very much.
Thank you.